And we are live, folks. Sorry for starting a few minutes late here. I've literally been dying laughing. I'm actually crying.
He's actually dead.
It's literal.
We went back and we just listened to some of our original audios from. I know, Victory. I know, starting late. I know, but we're here. We're live. But we went back and watched some of our original. Excuse me. Some of our original episodes.
We took a little trip down memory lane, and not that we're any less cringy now, but it was bad before. Like
we had the giggles big time,
dude.
Which are we just not happy anymore? Is that what happened?
I don't know. I haven't laughed like that with you guys in quite a while. Maybe that's a sign.
Maybe it's because of the sad energy you've been bringing. Kyle used to freaking be hot on the mic. Man.
You know what?
He'd fire up.
Once I developed a character that you guys fed into, I sort of feel like I had to live up to that character.
What, like originally as the host?
No, like just so like all these like quirks.
You're living down to your character now.
Like living down. No, like when someone's like, "Oh, that's Kyle. He's the depressing one or whatever." I almost feel like I have to like
now
do that.
So it's our fault.
Honestly,
and I think you guys should feel bad because. Dude. You know, you actually have made my life sadder.
So let's say, man, Kyle always brings in the energy.
Kyle is our hype man.
He is.
Dude.
He comes in here and he just...
For a big man, he's got big energy.
And a big heart.
I wish you wouldn't say that. You know what it is? I think that was because now we've switched to a fully like live stream format. Before there was no visual aspect to this. I think that we used to be comfortable getting more silly back in the day than we do now.
I think there might be an element to that. I think you're right on that. I think the fact that we're on video.
Yeah, I feel like back in the day, just imagine think of all the times we've like just gone nuts and we've had to just
unhinged.
Yeah, and we've stopped it and deleted that portion, and now I feel like there's a constant
too. We're live.
We're live.
There's a responsibility.
Yeah,
that's exactly. Very true. I think that's probably and we've also going down this trip. I just didn't realize we've been talking into microphones for damn near 5 years.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's crazy.
We've been doing this. We kind of stopped the podcast portion of this and just became a live streaming show, but going back and listening to all these old episodes and stuff, it's been fun actually.
Dude, we've had some great times. We happen to just click on the famous Wheeze, outro that makes an appearance every twice a quarter when Dylan lays it down.
What?
Dude. Yeah.
You have the Wheeze today, speaking of it.
We used to take audio clips. Yeah, I got a little bit of Wheeze today. We used to take audio clips and post them to Instagram and stuff,
yeah,
right?
Like
and then you would put on there like a little AI image or something, right? Like
it was
just our photo?
Just our photo, which I haven't adjusted since like episode 4 of our podcast, but
hey, that photo though was made for us.
I mean, how many episodes did we do before we started live streaming? Like,
dude,
it
probably
looks like
100
at least, right?
So Victory asked, when was your very first episode that we uploaded? September 8th, 2020. Fun fact, I wasn't there.
Yep. It was the reason that this is called the Katie ratio is because Dylan and I, Kyle Dylan, we formulated this podcast.
A perfect formula.
We used to work together, and we just were like, we should have a podcast because we love talking about video games.
We used to talk on lunch all the time, and we would if somebody else was with us, they would always tell us like, you guys should start a podcast,
and then
you just keep talking.
We had one episode, and our only listener was Billy.
Well, I'm sure more people listen.
And this guy had such a genuine interest in it. And then I told Dylan, I was like, how would you feel if I invited Billy onto the podcast? Because I feel like he would be a fun addition.
And we had known each other very briefly at this point.
Like poker, but like maybe 4
interactions.
4 interactions
4 different
at
settings.
that point. And then Dylan was like, yeah, that'd be great. And then the rest is history.
Then boom. And then we came up with a good KD, you get the dub. And Billy had no clue that
for like 3 years.
That was us trying to include him.
because
I just was like, yeah, I guess if you have a good KD ratio, you do win more often than not. And that's what I thought it was, but no. Yeah.
But yeah, there you have it. First episode we ever uploaded was about Christopher Nolan. So we've obviously very greatly
we've matured.
in the types of stuff we talk about. We've literally, so first episode was Christopher Nolan, then Cyberpunk, and then like
Firefly,
The Office, Toy Story, GameStop, Mass Effect. These are literally like the things that we
still talk about.
still talk about all the
Do you
time.
remember how big that GameStop stuff was?
Oh yeah, it was crazy.
Holy
Yeah.
shit. That was insane.
There was one guy that made like $10 million off of it. They just made a documentary about that guy.
Roaring Kitty, I think was his username. And I think at one point his calls were worth like 1.3 billion or something insane.
Wow.
And he was like, and even on that day, he's like, diamond hands. And it was like, okay, like you
The
might
meme.
want to sell. Yeah. And then he got wrapped up in all this like stock manipulation stuff. And it was just very strange. And I'm like, anyway, that was a long time ago.
Discovery Plus nonsense.
I wonder too how
Street.
much more, when we're just recording the audio, I don't have to maintain like any of the dashboard stuff, like to make sure the camera's still working, audio's still in there,
Yeah.
a chat to manage and stuff like that. Make sure we're still live and not dropping frames. Like
We've
how
lost.
much-
We've
how much-
recorded. Remember, we've lost like 45 minutes
because
of,
we didn't know.
and then like afterwards, we're like, oh shit.
Round 2, what are your thoughts on that game?
We used to. This is how grindy we were trying to be at this. We used to record a podcast and a live stream all in one night.
Yep.
I liked that.
It was
Honestly,
a lot.
it
though.
was a lot.
We
I did
sometimes
like that
we wouldn't
format.
finish recording till like almost 11.
Yeah. Well, because we were trying to make the live stream way more casual, right? Where it was just
And then,
loose
yeah.
topics, and then the podcast was going to be kind of
Hard.
hard, very formal. Like, here's our
fact finding journalism.
yeah, right. I think it lasted.
That's what people come to us for.
But it was like, we're going to have segments. We were going to do because we used to have segments. Remember, Kyle, you had
Yeah,
that game.
so we had the ones that was like the Google Translate one,
Yeah.
where we used to do a description of a movie or game and cycle it through a bunch of Google Translate languages, and it all jumbled up, and the other two would have to guess what it was. There was one where we played F, Marry, Kill.
What
With-
was it?
With like 3 different characters.
Yes.
Like we did what was like Godzilla, King Kong, and,
Captain America
and,
or
like
something?
I don't know, but like
Wait, Godzilla, King Kong, and Captain
Well, remember
America?
the whole meme? He's like, I could do this all day.
do this all day.
That's all I remember that conversation.
I remember you made a joke about you needed to take a machete to wade through King Kong's like fur. And you're like, I can do this.
I
all day.
could get there.
And then we used to play.
Dingleberries.
What was the hypotheticals?
the Shaq one.
It was called hypotheticals.
That was the game, right? When
Yeah.
Yeah, and you would
give you a story.
it
and
give
then-
you a story, and I forget what the goal was of it. It was like, what would you do in
Yeah, I
this
think
situation?
it's just what would
The
you
one
was-
I remember was you walk home, on the bed there's flower petals and a suitcase full of cash open. You hear your shower running. You go look, and it's Shaq
Yeah.
in your shower taking a shower. What would you do? And it's like that was one we had.
Billy was not a fan of that game.
I remember this exact
remember
argument. It
him-
was like, what?
him being like, his response was always, "I would never be in that situation." Like he
It's
didn't
I
want to
couldn't
play
rat- I
along.
was way too literal with that whole thing. The Victory says, I enjoyed when you guys discussed who would make a good cast of movies and games.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
we did that too.
We used to do that all the time.
Like we did Mass Effect.
We did Red Dead on
Red
the first
Dead.
episode.
Mm-hmm.
Red Dead 2.
We should do that again.
Which that game,
is a
Red
fun
Dead 2, when
little
we started
segment.
this, was only a couple years old.
Dude.
Wow.
Now it's 8 years old.
I saw a clip of now Path of Exile 1 is not anything to write home about, like in terms of graphics and stuff. But then I saw it compared to other games around 2012.
Oh, yeah.
The fucking graphics were ass. And I remember specifically being in that era going like, they're really good. Like, it's amazing how fast that illusion sort of gets pulled out from.
Yeah,
under you.
when do you think that's going to stop happening? At what point does graphical achievement just kind of plateau? I think it's already happening.
Unironically, I do actually think it's already happening.
I think so,
because
too.
if I look in the last 5 years, I don't know if I really see a
Now
Do you
it's
take
all
any other
about-
5 year segment? You're like, oh yeah, you could see the jump, but
But like you go back
I
and
mean, how long's Cyberpunk been out? And that's still the standard.
yeah, but like you go back and plug in like Uncharted 4. I really don't think that games look better than that.
Yeah.
No.
And that game came out in 2016.
Yeah,
So like
that's
that
a
would
good. That's a
that
good
was
point.
very hyper optimized for one console.
Sure.
They didn't have to worry about, but like
But you're talking
um,
about 9 years ago.
but 9 years ago. Right. And if you go back and you compare a game from the year 2000 to 2009,
Oh boy,
there's a big difference.
quite a few more pixels on screen.
Yeah.
Or like, I remember we looked up like what was the very first RPG or whatever. Do you remember what that
It was like, yeah, some
So
like,
you were like an
8-bit?
X on a
and it was like,
screen.
it had all
X.
this like deep lore of like a fantasy world. And then we looked at gameplay and it was like this little like beep.
Yeah, it was just text mainly too. Yeah,
It was primarily text based. Like I check in the hole. and
Yeah.
then it just reads out what happens.
Your arm
or
gets
whatever.
bitten off.
Your arm gets bitten off. Roll
Damn.
for
Roll
See
for
what
initiative.
roll for initiative with the hole. Like, who's gonna go first?
damn man. I still feel like we have plenty of fun though. We get silly.
No, we do.
No.
I think back to the the debate episode or the hot ones. Like those are definitely the highlight.
There's a
ones.
certain freedom though, I think, of knowing like, well, we could just edit this out and just
For
being
sure.
able to just go nuts,
Well, and I think
you know?
totally rogue.
Yeah.
how to we're like, and we look at each other, but we also kind of look at the camera. Back then, we just used to stare at each other, and we had this single mic in the middle that we had to get close to. I think that aspect added
an
because
intimacy.
like if one of us is like gonna break, we might not be looking. We might be looking at the camera or looking at.
Do you find yourself? I don't think I've ever delivered a message.
Well, I'll look at,
staring
like, this
directly
screen.
at
I've
the-
gotten like
yes, I will do
Yeah.
that.
I've gotten like text messages from people I know and they've said something and like I've like looked directly at the camera to let them know I got it. Like
wink at him.
but like
Yeah.
that's about it.
Yeah.
I don't just like sit there and stare at it when talking.
Yes.
We should do the. So I'm just keep reading this message, this victory message. Like I enjoy when you guys, would take what would make a good cast from a game to a movie or whatever. I feel like there was just, is that not really happening anymore? I don't know. And I think back to when we started this, I just felt like there was a lot more.
No, I mean we're getting Warhammer, which is a board game, but we're getting Warhammer. We got
Mass Effect TV show.
Mass Effect TV show. We're getting
Fallout.
Fallout. Uncharted came out recently.
Last of Us.
I guess you're right.
I think they're still
yeah.
trying, and
They're
it's
still
just
trying. They haven't really. I mean, Last
Sonic?
of Us season 1, I think, separated itself pretty well from like just the video game show,
Mhm.
But it also has a very strong source material. But I don't know if they're ever going to shake that meme of like video game
I mean,
properties.
Yeah.
Sonic. We're about to get a 4th movie. They just started filming it.
It's
Yeah, but that's for
financially very
kids.
successful,
I
think that's
watched
for
it. I
kids,
liked it.
though.
Well, you're just
Yeah,
a
but
kid.
you are
just
just
a
a
dumb
kid.
kid.
You're just
you
a
know?
dumb idiotic.
Just immature.
I have it ready for the movies, Mom.
Grow up. Grow up, Dylan.
You can only get one candy.
Just has an actual breakdown.
Just yeah,
sobbing. Stop.
like oh god.
Stop recording.
Have you seen, dude? This is deep. This is deep lore right here. Have you seen like the fetishes where people have where they want to be in public, but like as a baby,
Yes.
and then
wrong with human
they'll
beings?
have dude, no shit. They'll
wrong?
have like freakouts, and
Temper tantrums?
their partner has to punish them, or I don't know what the fetish is, but they'll
I'll tell you what it
full-grown
is.
adult will
A
act
mental
like
disorder.
a child. It's yes, it is. I've seen too many clips of this shit in like airports and grocery stores, and you're just like,
Or do you think
what?
on what level do people do this because they think it'll make them viral? Like if they upload
think
a video
there's-
of it.
That's the problem with a lot of this is because you take what probably always existed at some level because somebody came up with that thought.
Yeah.
And then now you add this profit motive also behind it, and that's where you get into these weird areas,
like
right?
public, yeah.
Yeah.
Because probably in the past it just used to be private. Like in their home, they may have acted like a child, but out and about,
Which is still weird, but at least you're hiding it.
yeah.
It's just so goofy. But anyway, that's I don't know how we talked about her history to that, but
Neither here nor there.
I like to participate. Everyone, no, I'm just kidding. Okay,
See,
so
because of your like alopecia though too, I feel like it would be like
You'd be a good baby.
maybe I've been faking.
He's in a
Hey,
diaper
all
right now.
it's because you want to role play.
I just want to role play as a baby.
play being a baby.
He was testing our reaction to see how we would react to.
It's been
a
a long
decade.
experiment.
It's been a slow roll, slow burn here, folks.
He's gonna write a book on it.
Okay, we do have some
Becoming
topics today that we want to get into. Did you guys see? I don't know how much you saw the announcement, but Switch 2. Did you guys see the announcement?
I did, yeah.
I did.
I watched. I watched one announcement trailer. I didn't get much from it, other than like the aesthetic design of it. I didn't look into like if there's any major hardware differences.
Major hardware differences. It's actually kind of insane how much they've milked the original Switch in terms of performance. I mean, when you think of some of the games on there,
It's a mobile
like,
phone.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's like wow. So it's getting a pretty significant hardware bump. From what I've seen, people who are interested in handheld gaming and also Switch people who are interested in handheld gaming are really excited for this. People who own the Switch 1 already, maybe I don't know if they're going to be super incentivized to upgrade right away. I guess too I don't know how much your library gets ported over. I think it's very similar to how consoles work, where you have the PlayStation 4 version of that game, and you could upgrade to the PlayStation 5 version of it, but it'll still run. I think they're doing something silly like that, which I hate. I think that's so fucking silly. You own the property, like shouldn't that be further? And maybe they know they don't need that. That's not going to incentivize you.
The
But
PS4, PS5 thing, you get both games when you buy one, but it just depends which one you download.
well, if you bought, like, let's say you bought a game before the PlayStation 5 ever came out, when you upgrade to the PlayStation 5, you don't just automatically get the PlayStation 5 version.
If
of that,
they've
right?
released a PS5 version, you do.
Yeah.
So so if they re-release it as a
Yeah.
whatever,
So a lot of PS4 games don't have a PS5 version, so you just play the PS4 version on the PS5.
got it.
But like, if the game has a PS5 version, at least in my experience, it's always been free
Yeah.
Got it.
if you already own the PS4 version.
Is that typically only with Sony games though?
No,
third-party
because I did that
developers?
recently with Witcher. I had it on the PS4, and then I downloaded it recently because I was thinking about maybe playing it again, and it let me download the PS5 version.
And that wasn't one of the. 15
Cyberpunk
times
also. I only bought that game 4 times. All right, I don't. Cyberpunk also, which I mean, they kind of were obligated to do that free
Yeah.
upgrade, but they had a free PS5 version.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next gen.
Those are the only games I know of that I can think of off the top of my head, though, that because I don't play a lot of games on PS4 that I'm also not playing on PS5. Like one of my most played games on PS5 is Mass Effect.
Interesting.
And they only have
Legendary
a PS4
edition?
version. The Legendary edition. They only have a PS4 version. They don't have a PS5 version.
That never came out on PS5.
No, it came out on PS4.
Wow. I feel like that wasn't even that long ago when I was playing that.
The Legendary edition? When did the
2022,
Legendary-
I thought, or something.
It came out before that.
Jesus, more than 3 years ago already. That's insane.
I feel like you just played it.
When you guys watched everything.
Yeah. And you killed Rex.
It came out in
Immediately.
2021.
Okay.
Wow.
No.
And PS5 came out when?
2020, the end of 2020, right?
Well, that's what I thought. So
They didn't release the PS5 version though. At the time, nobody could even get one. So their reasoning was they had already developed this game.
yeah,
And it was already
fuck it.
pretty much done by the time.
There would be no additional benefit
Yeah.
to make
It was already. It was an old game that
Yeah.
was, running.
pushed to the limit.
Yeah. There was no further limit.
Roger that. So anyway, Switch 2 is coming out. People are pretty pumped about
2020, November 2020 is when PS5 came out.
Okay.
Which this is like we're already like entering the twilight years of this generation of consoles. How did that happen?
Dude,
Years have just been flying by.
every year I get older, it goes faster and faster. And I ask older people, like, does it slow down? And they say it just gets faster.
It just keeps getting
It's
faster.
just so fucking depressing.
I think one of the things you have to do, I read, is you have to be constantly willing to shake up and have lots of variation in your life.
Oh boy.
And you're like, I've been doing the same thing
I've been
for
doing
5
the
years.
What does that even mean? Just like quit your job every 6 months?
No, simple things like take on new hobbies constantly,
Hmm.
be open to, changing,
Keep your brain out of autopilot.
Yeah,
That's
like don't take the same way home every day. Don't like things like that. Like don't walk from your office to your bedroom the same way every day, and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
Do
I'll
jumping jacks.
I'll walk backwards.
You
Cartwheel.
go outside and then go through your back door.
Just do the worm. Crawl through the window.
But I think the big one is not being afraid to take on new hobbies a lot, doing lots of different things like that.
Okay.
Eventually, I feel like you'll run out of things and you have to go back to the other old ones.
I have
but-
a lot of hobbies, and I also get like delusionally addicted to things, like Path of Exile 2, or like whatever the new game is. I will go like way into it and learn everything about it.
If I've had
And it's
like
still going fast.
if I've had like a rough day at work or something, sometimes I'll take a different way home. And
That
I don't
seems
know why.
pretty nice.
It helps me feel better by the time I get home.
I only
And
have one way home.
realistically, you're not probably adding that much time.
No, I mean,
like 10 minutes.
not even that. Sometimes,
Yeah.
like it's all.
But it's
it's
just-
all
it's
relatively the
just
same. We don't
different.
live in New York. It's not like if you take a different route, you add 2 hours to your journey.
I feel like my dumbass min-max brain would be like, why would I do that when I just get home 2 minutes early? I save 35 seconds. Like, why? What do you just have 35 seconds to donate? Like, what the fuck?
If
That's
not
an
on
inner dialogue
on the grind set.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck,
I wake up every day at 4 a.m. I start with.
Then I go back to bed. So yeah, that's coming out. I don't know when, if they even have a release date for it. I didn't see anything about that, but I did see some tech YouTubers talking about the specs, and they're pretty hyped.
It's gonna take
Says
something
2025.
something pretty big for me to get into like the Switch.
Yeah.
At this point in my life, I'm
Well,
not.
I watched this one guy who said that the Switch 1 console launch was launched had probably the most prolific launch titles in existence. It was like he rattled off like some Mario Kart game, Breath of the Wild, and a couple other things that I guess launched with the original Switch. I don't know if that's
Odyssey.
true. or
Breath of
not.
the Wild was a big one. Mario Odyssey.
I mean, I guess you could say that like if you're into Nintendo games.
Yeah.
They've always been really hard for third parties to work with, and like especially by the time Switch came out, the ports that were on Switch of like third party games like Witcher and Mortal Kombat and they were all so inferior compared to the other console versions that like it was almost like if you're buying a Switch to play anything that's not a Nintendo game,
You're
you're
suffering.
wasting money.
Well, and I guess that's another element of the hardware side is they're going to have. I think some of their hardware that they're putting into this allows for DLSS and these other sort of algorithmic AI frame generation stuff. So maybe we'll see things that are able to get a little more juice out of these, but we'll see. I mean, I think the Switch 1 was probably the best original practical example of upscaling, where you rendering at a lower resolution. And then, making it 4K. I'm gaming
Yeah.
at 4K. Sure.
Sure you are.
So,
Console pleb.
I mean, how many years? When did the Switch 1 come out?
I think
2015? I mean, so long ago.
2017?
It feels like it's been so long since we've had a refresh of this. And they came out
March 3rd, 2017.
2017. And they came out with like an OLED version of it or
Yep.
something.
The OLED
but
version came out like 2-3 years ago. I
It
think.
didn't come out with like any better specs, right?
Barely.
Just a better screen.
Yeah, it was just the better screen.
So
People were saying that you could get like better frames. Because I looked into it a little bit, but I was like, yeah, no.
do you have a Switch?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It looks like so. Yeah, like Nintendo kind of stopped falling in line with the other consoles releases because they launched the Wii U a year before PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and the Wii U was like it was a huge flop.
Massive.
And then so they only had that console, like the lifespan on that was only like 2012 2017. Whereas so like they're launching all of their consoles now like on the off cycle years of these other. It's weird how they're doing that.
They do their own thing.
Yeah.
So is this going to be their next console then? I guess. Like
I don't know if they're going to consider this. We're in the
are they gonna
ninth
do a
generation.
Wii something.
In a way, you could almost consider this like the soft launch to the 10th generation of consoles.
Whoa.
We got the PS4 Pro.
Yeah,
PS5
well,
Pro.
like in a way, yeah, like the Switch was almost like a soft launch into the ninth generation, but it took like 3 more years before like the big names to drop. But that's kind of what this signifies.
I think it's going to be a while before we see the PS6. I really do. I
yeah.
don't think it's going to be in the normal. I think it's going to be on the long end of the normal traditional cadence. Because I think we looked it up once. We saw the
Didn't they
launch
say, like,
cadence.
10
It was
years?
slowly getting closer and closer. I think like the PS4 to PS5 was the shortest. I think we're going to see it get out a little longer.
7 years is still, I mean,
That's a long time.
that's
for
still a long
hardware.
time for hardware. And
Yeah.
PS4 to PS5, that was the time frame, was 7 years. And that's kind of about the time frame. I think PS3 launched in 2006 to 2013. That's still the longest, I think. But that's 7 years also.
Yeah.
So like I think 7 years is kind of the standard.
In the standard.
Yeah.
So we're already at 5.
We're at 5, so 2 more years of like
Could you imagine?
This has been
Like
the
next year,
the
we're going to be
shortest-
talking about PS6 leaks.
the shortest console generation of my life. That goes back to the whole everything's going
Yeah.
so quick now.
Oh, crazy, man. Well, let's jump into the next topic here. I want to talk about live service games that got canceled. Sony had a big event years ago. I think in 2022 or something like. Yeah, in 20. Oh, I have a quote here. In 2022, Sony announced 12 live service projects from its first party and partner studios in development. In that time, most of them have been canceled.
Yeah.
And so here's some of the titles that got canceled: God of War, Spider-Man, Last of Us multiplayer, and those are the highlights ones. But there's a shitload more that like one-off projects, I think. But we made the joke like that's 2 years of development. Does Sony just like burning money?
They're
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
And we're not even talking about everything that they've like lost in their movie department with all of their like superhero Spider-Man
Madam
villain
Web.
movies that they've been launching. Craven, Madam Web.
Those weren't profitable.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think so.
wow.
I think Madam Web flopped hard, and so
I
did
don't even
Morbius?
know. I don't even think I heard
Morbius
of that.
might have been a little profitable.
I think the only ones that they've been
Morbius?
because
making
it was
money on
memed.
is
That's crazy. Well, and then I saw today NCSoft, one of the large MMO makers, I guess if you want to call it, publisher, cancel. They were making a Horizon MMO. Like, was anyone even wanting that?
No.
no.
Like
oh, no, people didn't really like the new Horizon.
the God of War, a live service God of War,
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Like, what would that even look like?
horrible. I
Like,
think.
you couldn't play as God Kratos,
Kratos,
because
yeah.
everybody would be playing as Kratos. It doesn't
And
make
in
any sense.
The game, like, that's like the worst game to pick a live service because we don't see any other characters besides the gods, really. There's not like
There's no world.
There's no world. There's nothing like set up to where like Spider-Man, they had a kind of cool idea with it being the Spider-Verse. Like that's already a thing, like that's exists. So it's like, okay, yeah, you could probably, it's still stupid, but you could do something. God of War, I don't know. And I'm so glad they canceled it because it would have been so stupid. If you had a battle pass in God of War,
Yeah.
the fuck?
I don't see
Sony
any
was
world
drooling.
where that's like fun.
No.
It doesn't.
Well, and then The Last of Us multiplayer, I feel like that's the easiest one to do because they already have all the gameplay figured
Yeah.
out. Just
Yeah.
institute like servers and game mechanics. But that gets canceled. And they've been trying to. I mean, I feel like I've been hearing about a Last of Us multiplayer for a decade. I
Yeah.
swear to God, they've been. I feel like they teased that from their original game when it came out. They were like, "Oh, we're gonna have updates to this," and they never did.
I think they did. They said that they were going to have like a multiplayer DLC for the first Last of Us, and it never came out or something like that.
Oh, I remember the promises at launch because I'm like, "Oh, I could get into this," and then I realized, not really. This combat's not that great. But there's just a shitload of games getting canceled. There's MMOs, like the Riot MMO got canceled 2 years ago, maybe last year. After years of kind of building that whole thing, it's crazy. I feel like games have reached a point now where they're so expensive. And I don't know why. And they take so long to make, and I don't know why. That you're talking about, imagine starting a game. Fortnite comes out, right? You're playing Fortnite. And it takes you the traditional, I think it's like 7 years to actually build and publish a game. To now. Like you see Fortnite, you're like, oh, I want to capture that audience. We could come up with our own. That world is totally different. You
Yeah.
cannot see Fortnite in 2017 or whatever. I think 2017 is when it came out. And then build up a studio and build a game and release in 2024 or whatever and expect to have some fantastic results. And I
Well,
think,
think about the battle royale craze in general.
yeah,
It was taking over the world for a while, and now it's
everything was a fucking battle royale.
now it's kind of like dying off a little bit.
Elden
Now-
Ring.
Yeah. Oh, that's, yeah.
I don't think that's like going to be a battle royale in that same sense. So
Yeah.
I don't really know what they're doing with that.
I don't think anyone knows. Like, we need a
Yeah.
lot more information for me to get really sold on that. It's
I
like
just looked
co-op.
up
And it was like,
the only
how?
Sony Spider-Verse movies, like villain-verse movies that have been successful, has been the Venom movies.
The Venom. Okay.
Those ones all have been profitable, but Morbius, Madam Web, and Craven have all been box office failures.
Jesus.
So Craven the Hunter made like $60 million against like an almost $200 million budget.
Oh my God. Did you? Who was here for the rhino noise? It was you.
Was it? I think it was all three of us. No, we thought
Billy
it
was
a
in the
joke.
bathroom. I
Oh,
think
maybe.
we stumbled upon on YouTube like a scene of Craven and the villain, the rhino. He made this noise
Not good.
that if it's real, which
I think it's real. I looked it up after that. Everyone's talking about how it's a real voice that this guy makes, and it's hard to explain. Just look up Rhino voice on YouTube,
Yeah.
and I'm
It's
sure
like,
it'll pop up. It was so bad. It was like,
And he's a rhino?
yeah, he's like the character Rhino from Spider-Man, like a major villain, and he's supposed to be like this
This
intimidating,
intimidating.
like not obviously as powerful as Juggernaut, but like the same concept is like you can bust through any wall and just keep running.
yeah,
you
he's
know?
a rhino. But yeah, he makes this like
Oh, I'm going to definitely check this out.
It's so bad.
But
I just feel like there's a few great examples of this live service model and how much money it was raking in.
what are the most successul ones? There's Fortnite,
Fortnite, bro.
but like what else?
I don't know,
Holy
GTA
shit. Call of
6
Duty. Like,
or 5,
here, you want to know?
Yeah,
This is how you
let's
do
see.
it.
Garena Free Fire.
There you go. Oh, we aren't even considering the mobile market.
Yeah.
Holy shit. All right, this is how you see this. You go to Twitch. Here we go. Marvel Rivals. That's just new though. World of Warcraft, League of Legends, Valorant, Counter-Strike 2, Escape from Tarkov, Apex Legends. Most of these games came out over 5 years ago.
Dead by Daylight came out a while.
Diablo
Still
4 is
pulling
popping
in.
off again. Madden. Holy fuck. FIFA. Yeah, I mean,
Those are the most played, but the most profitable. So Fortnite is still number 1.
I believe it.
League of Legends, Call of Duty Warzone, Candy Crush Saga, World of Warcraft, and Apex are the most financially successful live service games. Candy Crush.
Candy Crush Saga.
I
Mobile
wouldn't even have
gamers,
thought
dude.
to.
Speaking
That's the
of
world.
live service, I tried out Suicide Squad because they had it for free on PlayStation.
Oh, yeah.
Kyle.
Yeah, how'd it go?
It's okay. The story, I enjoyed it. I played the story. I enjoyed the combat. I thought it was. I think the gun combat is the weakest part. But like the abilities and the characters, how they feel, are funner. The whole kill the Justice League is a little weird, like killing all these people that are heroes because.
Like they're just trying to be edgy.
Well, and most of the time it's turned into like almost a joke.
Yeah.
And it's like, but at the same time, we haven't really built up these characters that you could have a huge emotional, like, oh no.
I know that she had some kind of flack around her design, but one of the things I really like about Kill the Justice League is Wonder Woman's design.
Oh, she looks awesome.
I don't know what it is about her, but like I feel like that's like the perfect looking Wonder Woman to me.
Well, and so they just released the last season, and they pretty much, with the last season that came out, they said that everything that happened basically didn't matter because all the people you kill, all the Justice League, they were clones. So they're still
So
alive.
none of them are.
The only one that's dead
Is Wonder Woman?
is Wonder Woman because she wasn't brainwashed.
Well, that's lame.
Yeah, so she dies because Superman kills her, but everybody else is still alive. It was cool hearing Kevin Conroy's Batman for last time, and they
Yeah.
did a really cool.
The only reason they did that, well, these are all clones, is because of the severe backlash.
Oh, yeah.
100%. That was not the plan.
Oh, and it's the
Like-
easy cop out writing.
Yeah.
Oh, we can bring him back at any time.
it's comic
Well,
books at the
and
end
they
of the day.
tell you
Bring back anybody.
at the end of the game, they're like, so you defeat Brainiac, right?
yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, well,
you already beat it.
yeah.
What the fuck?
do you
What is it,
do?
like a 4-hour campaign?
It was. I mean, I played it like 3 days. About
okay.
quite a bit of time. I'll have to look how much time. But so you beat Brainiac at the end, and they tell you like, well, you know, because it introduces the multiverse kind of stuff and like Elseworlds and like we got to kill all 13 Brainiacs. You're like 13? God damn! So they wanted to do 13 seasons of this game.
Wow.
They ended up getting to 8. 8's where it
Wow.
ends.
Okay.
And there's only 4 more
Oh, I
characters.
didn't even know they went that far.
Yeah.
Me neither.
4 more characters got introduced. Mrs. Freeze.
Oh,
Lawless.
God, I've seen her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lawless, I don't know who that is. Joker, and then Deathstroke.
Huh.
And
Mrs. Freeze.
Mrs. Freeze is interesting.
You wait till you
Definitely. Yeah, so this is an Elseworld version of Mr. Freeze.
Interesting.
And yeah, the game though, like I said, I did enjoy certain aspects of it. Like the traversal for certain characters felt really good, and the abilities, like I played as King Shark. I didn't know much about him before the game. I think he's really cool. Like I want to know more about him, which is to me tells me that they're
Came
writing.
across so much more stupid in the movie Suicide Squad.
Yeah. Well, they make in the game he's like Drax. Like
Yeah.
Oh.
that's his thing is he's just like kind of he doesn't get Earth. But he was really cool. I enjoyed him, and then Harley, of course, she's cool. But they did a really touching tribute to Kevin Conroy, which was cool at the end. But how they kill off Batman was still kind of weird to me. I think
Yeah.
they could have redone
It
it.
wasn't the real Batman.
Yeah, it was a clone, so it
clone.
doesn't matter now. I do still hope that, you know, hearing this news about the live service that we're talking about, I hope that this was a result of them forcing Rocksteady to do a live service, and that Rocksteady like makes like a Superman game or something. Because I loved the Arkham games. I think they're
Yeah.
the best superhero games out there, and I would be sad if this is the last one that they did.
I think that I don't know. I'm not going to speak for what was going on behind the scenes, but I don't think that their skill set really was there for this type of game.
No,
You know, they made the Arkham games, are, like you said, some of the best superhero games ever made. Not even, I mean, I would say like they're, I don't even know if it's debatable. I mean, it really is like the best superhero trilogy as far as gaming
Yeah.
goes. but I think that they didn't really know what to do when it came to like live service because they're like a story driven type of thing.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, it seems like they were trying to just shock the player base or I don't know. And like it just seems like it was just a misstep on their part. But maybe you're right. Maybe it was like they were being forced to do this. They didn't want to do it.
Which I'm sure there's blame on.
I wonder
both
how
sides.
much a studio, if they don't want to do something or they're being forced to, I wonder how much do they try and sabotage it so they're not forced to do this for the
Continue
next
to
10
support it.
years?
Yeah.
Like
That's kind of a crazy thought. I feel like I would quit then to tarnish my name.
yeah, but you're
in a
also getting
project.
paid
Yeah.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they still are like, they can present it in a way like, no, we put our best genuine effort into this. But like, that their writing is better than that.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, playing Batman Arkham and then playing this
Oh,
one,
God.
like you have these interactions. Especially, I'll just bring up the Harley and Batman one. The game came out after he passed away. They knew that this was his last time. Now, yes, they have a certain set recorded of whatever he said. They could have gone back, made Harley re-record lines that made it a bit more bittersweet, and then use whatever they have left of his. No, they didn't. It's just like she's like talks about like every joke needs a punchline, then shoots him, and it's like, what? And then
It
same
kills
thing.
Batman.
Yeah, shoots him in the head. Flash, he like as soon as he dies, he's the first Justice League member you kill. As soon as he dies, Captain Boomerang starts to unzip his pants to piss on him,
Nice.
and it's like this isn't the same as the people that wrote Batman Arkham.
Well, it's like look at Thor and Love and Thunder. This is loosely related, but
It's the same thing.
You
though.
get
Yeah.
to that area. You get to the area where it's like the house of all the gods, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be this epic ass thing. You see Zeus, who's played by one of the greatest actors of all time. And then I go back and I see like the clips from that scene and I rewatch the full scene. Absolute dog shit. They absolutely neuter any idea of that character.
Yeah.
Like they're going back and forth with Thor, and he's like, "Well, you're not invited to the orgy." It's like, what is this writing? Like, what the fuck? It's like it's like a college freshman's idea of what the gods would do to party.
I feel like
what?
so. I blame the this has been happening a lot in movies and TV shows
100%.
where I think the problem lies is people trying to replicate James Gunn's style and not doing it well.
You think Guardians of the Galaxy popped off so hard that
I
everyone's
think-
like,
I
"Oh, we
think-
need to
I
hit on
think
that"?
Guardians of the Galaxy, his specific style, where the problem is he's the only one I know that can
He
balance
balanced it. Yes.
heart and humor and action in a way that still feels organic and healthy.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And these others, so like Taika Waititi and like this, and they don't know how to do that, and they end up just making a parody version of what they're trying to showcase. And James Gunn, whatever it is that he does, he like who he gets involved. I don't know if it's just his storytelling, but he's the only one I've seen do that like actually efficiently. And Taika Waititi did it kind of okay with Thor Ragnarok. But I've always been very critical of Thor Ragnarok. I actually don't think it's as good as everyone says it is.
The more I watch it,
Yeah.
I fall into more of that camp. I'm like, do you realize what's happening right now?
Yeah.
And it's a fucking joke.
Yeah, that's my problem is they treat it like a joke. That's this too.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, here's the Flash, one of the most beloved characters in comic book history, and they're like, wouldn't it be hilarious if like he just pissed on his dead body after we kill him?
Yeah.
Like is that like that? That's not real. Like who was in that room that greenlit that was like, this is gonna be great. The people are gonna love this.
Shock value.
Yeah, I just don't get it.
yeah.
Versus, I just watched one of my favorite movies of all time, Good Will Hunting. And what I really was, I don't know if you guys feel the same way when you watch the same movie all the time. Like, you almost have like an out of body experience where you're thinking critically about the movie and how it's made versus just like watching it because you know of damn near every word in that movie.
I need to hear more.
So I'm watching it and I'm observing this movie and kind of looking at it through the lens of the movies I've seen in 2025 and 2024. And I don't know when Good Will Hunting came out, 1990s, I would say.
Yeah.
Something like that. They made every scene impactful. I feel like there's so much bullshit fluff in modern film where it just sort of fills screen time or
97.
it doesn't really have weight on what the movie experience was. And the perfect scene that sums that up for me is he's in Matt Damon is in therapy with Robin Williams. And Matt Damon asks, how did you know when your wife was the one?
I love that.
And they could have written it just a very basic scene where he's, providing tutelage to this young man who's sort of lost in the world, and it could have just been like a decent heartfelt thing. No, they totally take this super basic scene and elevate it through this whole narrative of, well, I was at this baseball game and it was the 5th game of the World Series, and it just elevates the whole scene. There's this beautiful story, there's energy. Robin Williams crushes that scene. Matt Damon crushes that scene from an acting standpoint. And all of a sudden they take this very basic conversation and it's like, holy shit, you just built a relationship that there's a reason that this is in the film.
Yeah.
And I watch modern movies and it's like, I don't know if they're, I don't know what the difference is. I'm not, a film buff that can actually name and label these things. I just feel like either there's not as much weight in the scenes or the storytelling is too telling, where it's like it's treating you like you're stupid and sort of holding your hand through the narrative versus sort of allowing it to each thing to. I don't know what I'm really saying, but I appreciate that movie so much. I just feel like it's almost absent in modern film. I don't know. Does that resonate with you guys at all? Do you kind of see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would think, to me, mostly it's the writing. I think a lot of times the writers we get now are probably inspired by like James Gunn or something that they don't quite know how to pull off. But then every now and again, I think we still do get writers, and I think it shows that they become popular. Like, I got reminded, I was just looking on my phone, and the scene from, I know it's not Good Will Hunting, but Captain America Civil War comes up.
This is like Big Daddy.
Yeah, Big Daddy. Civil War, when Steve and Robert Downey Jr. are in like the conference room, and he's like asking him to sign the accords. That's a good dialogue scene.
Super great.
And it's just dialogue, and it's like,
it's a nothing scene, but yet it bears so much. Yeah,
because he pulls out the pen. He's like, my dad got these pens from, I don't know, whatever, World War II, and he gives them to Steve or something like that.
I think that those types of movies still exist, but I think the problem is that's not what society puts emphasis on anymore.
Yeah.
Those types of movies, like, you can find them, but they're just like, they would never make money at the box office anymore. It's like literally released by an independent studio to, Amazon Prime or whatever. Like, because I know that when I've actually like, and even me as a consumer of this, I find myself sometimes being like resistant to watching a film that doesn't have the payout of like a Marvel franchise, Like, I can't remember, like, anytime I've ever watched a movie where it's just like a standalone good story type of movie, I have to talk myself into doing it. Where I'm like,
where's this building towards?
Yeah, I'm like, what am I getting out of this?
Yeah.
Like, am I gonna get like the adrenaline pump from like watching, Superman fight Batman? Like, and then I watch it and I'm like, I'm glad I watched that.
Yeah.
But like, I have to convince myself to do it before I do it.
I get that a lot too. I feel there's this I don't know, barrier to entry. It's like this inertia that I can't get started. Let me pose this question to you guys. Do you think because of the volume of content that exists, that like the truly great writers that exist in the world, that number really hasn't gone up, but the volume of content has gone up, and so it's watered down a lot of these projects?
That's probably a huge part of it as well.
Yeah.
There's so much.
There's
that,
just
like,
so much.
Yeah.
back in the
Fucking
day,
so much.
even 15 years ago, you would have only 4 films at any given time at the theater, like a month. It felt like. Now it's like I can't even count how many new movies launch. Like,
And you've never
a
even
month.
heard of it.
I've never even heard of half of
And it
them.
might even have an actor or two that you really like, and you just didn't
Yeah.
even hear about it.
Well, and then to add on to that, the great writers, they might not, like the new great writers, they might not get any recognition because nobody watches their movie.
Yeah.
Because
And
there's
it's not
so
so
many
much of a
movies,
cultural phenomenon.
so they don't rise up because nobody. How am I supposed to tell between a cheesy Bruce Willis action movie that he's just doing for money and something that's gonna blow me away? That has a really good writer, but
Yeah.
that has nobody actors.
yeah.
Because, like, I always find it funny. My parents, they're really guilty of this. If they see an actor they like, they will want to watch that movie. And I'm like, that does not guarantee the movie's good.
Not so much anymore.
I was like, if Morgan Freeman's in it, that doesn't mean it's a good movie.
Because the top actors are just going wherever there's so much money in that
Mm-hmm.
world right now.
So it's tough because so basically how we have to do is word of mouth is how we have to hear about these up and
Or
coming.
randomly when they're nominated for an Oscar. And we're
Yeah.
like, I've never even heard of that movie. You know what movie I watched recently that did have just like, we've talked about it before, this movie on the podcast, but God, it had like just the best dialogue because it was like an action movie, but their words were the weapons, was Steve Jobs.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Dude. Aaron Sorkin, he's the writer. Is that his name? Aaron Sorkin? Anyways, he everything he's ever written is like that. Like he's really good at writing dialogue.
Dialogue.
Yeah.
And that dialogue married so well with how the direction of that film. The director who made that whole scene where Steve and Jeff Daniels, whatever his character is,
Yeah.
when they're battling it out and each one is proving their own perspective, and it's going back and forth and jumping in time and all this epic music's going on.
Each time
It's
they
like, holy
release, like
shit.
each time they say something too, it makes you go like, "Oh yeah," like they're right. And then like Steve Jobs will say something, and you're like, "Yeah, yeah," and you're like it's such an effective
Yeah.
like back and forth. One of my favorite lines, and at the end of the day, Steve Jobs, because he's the title character and he's Steve Jobs, he ended up on top of that exchange over the course of several years. But I love that line when he's like, "You ask me who I am," and he like says, your product doesn't work. You can't sell, like the only thing we've ever made money on was the Apple II." And then he ends it, "And I'm the CEO of Apple. That's my resume."
Yeah.
And the way he says it, like obviously way better than I just did. But he drops that Jeff Daniels character, and you're like, holy shit. This guy is the CEO of Apple. And funny enough, that guy was not really even that good of a CEO in real life, which is why it didn't end up, that takeover happened. Steve Jobs got it back and all that. But like, just the way it's written, like that's a movie, like I think example of a more modern film where like they put an emphasis on, dialogue, story,
Yeah.
writing. And Michael Fassbender plays Steve Jobs.
So
The
good.
great.
So,
Steve, it's
Phenomenal.
time. I still say that line. It's such a nothing line. It was in all the trailers, and I always say that, like, probably once a week. Steve, it's time, and I'll remix Steve, with whatever. Ron, it's time,
I
I
think
have
the
no
same
idea why.
guy, I think Aaron Sorkin, I think he's also the one that wrote The Social Network.
Oh, that's a good one.
That
too.
one had a lot of really good dialogue in it as well. And I know he did the show The Newsroom. The
That's
HBO
a good
show.
one too.
Yeah.
There, I've seen a lot of clips. I don't know where that show ended up going, but
The first season was good, and then it kind of fell off.
That's
after
what
that,
I've
but,
heard.
yeah.
I'm not saying that I think writing is dead. I just don't think, for as much content we're being blasted with, it's definitely, as an aggregate, I think, gone down.
I think we're
that's my
getting the
point.
same amount of good quality films, but we're like literally quadrupled the amount of shitty films.
Yes,
is what happened.
That's probably the best way to frame that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Bonkers.
absolute. So let's go to Hollywood and turn things around.
We could be
I certainly
writers.
couldn't write. Not like that. I always want to download those apps, that's like new word a day,
Yeah,
But then I'm like, is that not really douchey to be like in conversation and drop a word that pretty much no one's gonna know what the fuck you're saying, So there's always that part of me. I'm like, but then you're watching these movies and they'll drop there's always like in really good writing they'll drop a word or two and you're like, what's that mean? I love the way that sounds,
I think there's this sci-fi writer, Larry Niven. I think he's the one that said this. I could be attributing this quote to him, and it's not his, but he said, "Always, if you're a writer, always write the story." Assuming that everyone reading it is just as, if not more, smart than you. He said, never dumb it down because you think that people are going to, always assume that the person's just as smart as you are.
Yeah.
If not more.
I love that.
And that's why I became a writer. I'm leaving this
The podcast.
quitting my day job.
I actually, no joke, if you were to ask me when we were 18 years old, like what I thought you would be doing in life, I thought you were going to go that route. Like some storyteller, you were trying to graduate with the English degree.
Yeah, it was an English
Like I would
major.
have thought he would have done something with storytelling or something.
I made
That's the
attempts.
And now
at
he's a
writing.
failure.
I'm a failure. Hey, I'll have you know that I was published in my community college literary journal.
No shit.
Yeah, my short story
Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome.
from like 2014.
11 years ago.
I know, right? What the?
I think, Billy,
College 11 years ago.
I think it's our fault.
I think this is his outlet.
We've been sapping his,
is his creative
creative juices. No,
We've been sapping it.
we've been. If it would have built up into him,
Well,
we've
now
been
he has AI
stealing
tools.
it
Oh.
for the podcast.
He's channeled it in the shorts.
I did start writing a book at one point, and I got about
feel like
40 pages in, and then I gave up.
What was it about? Sci-fi?
It was like a sci-fi esque like kind of thing. It's called the collections department.
The collections department. Ooh.
Yeah, it was about like basically like angels of death.
Is it like?
Coming for your IRS?
Is it
It was like so. It was
the
like
Adjustment Bureau?
kind of. It was like a comedy esque type story, but like it was like if like the afterlife, the people that ran it were like a very like regimented business approach to like.
That's cool.
And there was a specific department called the collections department. They were in charge of repossessions. And it
in
was,
the afterlife.
yeah, and of like humans,
Huh.
they would do repos and collections on debts and things like that. And there was
That's kinda
the
interesting.
main character was like, slowly like, the whole thing was like they had to go on to like Earth to do this, and they can only be there for a certain amount of time because the longer they spent time on Earth, the more humanity they would get because they weren't necessarily humans, but they would go in as humans. And so the more humanity they would get, and the idea was this guy stayed a little too long. And so it was like, it was like kind of like a comedy, like romance drama type thing. I'm just
Okay.
naming genres at this point, but that was the whole idea behind it. And I put about 40 pages into that.
That's crazy.
I thought like seemed entertaining, and then like I don't know if at the time I was like, this isn't like original enough. This type of thing has been done in other movies before, and then I was like,
what do they call that? Imposter syndrome started kicking
yeah,
in.
and then I was like this, and then I was like, I got into my head too much, and I gave up on
Yeah.
it. But
If you were to go back, do you think you would complete that story, or do you think you would crack at something completely fresh and new?
I don't know.
Like
I've
you were
never
like, "Hey, I
really
wanna
thought
get
about
back
that
to
until
writing."
just now. But, I I did like at the core. I did like that concept. I just think it wasn't fine.
I would read that book.
Yeah.
100%.
I think it sounds interesting. I don't think it's non-original and like there's other stories like that. I think it's, you know how many books I hear about that are like about fae,
Yeah.
the fae, like fairy people.
Oh god.
Oh my god. At my work I have this girl, she read 80 something books last year. And
Wow.
yeah.
The fuck? That's literally all you're doing.
Yeah, she reads a lot. But
Wow.
and I would like
All fiction?
yeah, just about most I
It's
think.
like the
Just
thesaurus.
lives in a fantasy world.
And so
Hey, you know what?
I would always get book reports from her, like about the book she's reading, and I would say good 80% of the ones I heard of were about fae in some form. It's crazy. It's like it's because it's such an broad like category or like creature that they can do kind of writers do whatever they want. They're like, oh, they're super powerful. There's not much known about them. It's like, okay, then I can make up the rules of the fae. It's weird. But yeah, so I mean, I don't think it'd be. Angel stuff. You have like supernatural.
It was so like I say angels, but it wasn't like a religious story.
Yeah.
It was like a I would gear more towards it like it was like fantasy type stuff. But like it was I never really presented it like a fantasy. I presented it like because I forgot I watched some Twilight Zone episode that like
Ooh.
inspired me. It was like called like a pitch for the angels or something like that about this like salesman that told he was gonna die, and he basically told the angel of death. He was like, if I can, essentially he's like, if I could pitch this product to you and you believe me, you'll let me go or whatever. And he was like successful in it. He did it. But then the angel of death had to kill a kid, and then so the guy was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if I don't take you, I got to take somebody. And then he was like, well, I didn't want that to happen. And then so he ends up saving the kid and then going willingly with the angel of death. It was like a Twilight Zone episode, super random. But I
Love the
watched
Twilight
that.
Zone.
Yeah, I watched that, and then that like got my
Juices flowing.
juices flowing. And I was like, what if there was like a whole department of these types of people that did this?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just one. It wasn't just one angel of death. It was like Angels Inc. And there was a specific collections department, and like I started like I went
Just
on this whole
building it
thing,
out.
yeah. And then I was like, what if this guy like he got a little curious, because they were never people, they were like assigned this by who knows what.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if he got a little curious? And the whole thing was like, if he spent too much time on Earth, he would slowly lose. He would start gaining humanity, and he wouldn't be allowed back anymore. And then, like I was playing around with that. Like I said, I got like 40 pages in, and then all that stuff where I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this isn't even good. What am I doing? What am I wasting my time on this?
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to get my wife to do a kids book, and because she had to do one for her studies, she built a whole book. I've never seen her work as hard as she did on something other than that. And she built this whole thing. It's called Silly Billy, and
Oh, you know what? She showed.
yeah.
I think she showed Dylan
Yeah.
and I that once. Yeah.
And I was like, this is so great. I'd love to see, she's a teacher, obviously. And so I'd love to see her like have her own books,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
her classroom or whatever. That'd be cool. But then I started looking into it, and you can't really, first, the illustrations. I guess when I originally looked at this, the illustrations were the toughest part. But now with AI, shit, you probably can have anything done.
I know, right?
And then two, you can't just like print one book. You know what I mean? Or like 5 books, you got to do like a run of them, and it's like,
Doesn't Amazon
Okay,
have
well-
like a self-publish?
do they?
I think they do.
I think that you could do like Amazon self-publish and release an electronic version of.
Interesting. And then I could get it printed
Might
at
be-
a print
yeah, it
shop
might be
or
worth
something.
Looking like maybe just print one
Because I always thought that
as
that'd
like
be,
a memorabilia
Yeah.
thing or whatever, and then do Amazon self-publish.
I love that
for
idea. Well, because I've
Yeah.
always had it in the back of my head as like a fucking amazing.
I'm sure,
birthday
like,
gift
if
or
you wanted
something.
to be like genuine with it though, too, you could get like you could probably commission someone to do
To do actual art
to
for
do
it.
actual
Sure.
artwork.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
like, I mean-
I'm sure. But with AI as soon as it is, holy shit.
I know, but it's like
Just be
taken away
so
from the heart.
specific.
Yeah,
You know,
AI
like, I feel
kind of
like-
has this fake, no heart in it.
It's not real
I can
art.
tell.
It's not real art.
Have you ever had a story like that?
Where I wrote a story?
Not wrote a story, but because I have a story in my head, like a full planned out like 3-part movie series. But do you have anything like that? Like a story you came up with that's like completely your own?
There's this concept that I've had for a long time.
Yes,
What?
I'm ready.
Are you ready? It's a sci-fi.
Yes.
This is what I wanted.
I've always wondered. I never thought to adapt this to like just make it cool. Like I guess I've thought it would make a cool movie, but I've never made any effort to do anything
Yeah,
with it.
same
Very
with me.
clear.
Yeah,
It's not like I've been working on this. No.
yeah. Behind the scenes.
Pulls out this
Yeah.
like tome.
Do you know how the gravity and time are sort of linked?
Yeah.
Together?
Time dilation.
Yeah, and I've always had this thought that would kind of make a interesting movie, but you know how they say the universe is expanding?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've always thought it would be an interesting concept to play on this idea that, okay, if the Big Bang Theory was actually real and all the mass of the universe was in one spot and then this big eruption happens, right? Poof, and it spreads out all the matter. Is it not that like we can't calculate the gravity, like, because gravity is infinite in its reach, but its effect is exponential, which means the further you are away from it, the less effect it has, and then the closer you get, it gets exponentially more significant. And so I've thought this concept could be kind of interesting, where when the universe explodes, that like our observation of the universe speeding up is actually just the mirror effect of everything getting further away from each other. And so gravity, when you add everything up, has less of a time dilation effect on reality.
Huh.
And there could be some kind of interesting, like, oh, when you make your way to the edge of the universe, like time slows down, because something like that
Yeah.
could be interesting, but I don't know. I've had that thought for
That's pretty cool, though.
a long time.
So is it just the concept? Like you don't have characters or anything, or
hell
like a
no.
story?
Yeah, no. Just like what is the whole thing rooted around?
Okay.
Right, like time and
I also have a sci-fi story that I'll let you. Obviously, you go, but I also had a sci-fi story that I was just thinking of in my head like a
Just
year
now?
ago. No,
Oh,
like
oh.
a year ago, and I named races and like different aliens and like
No
like,
shit?
all of that. I don't have like a main character or anything, but like I have
Okay.
like
So you have
the
like
whole.
the
I have
lore.
the lore built.
Do you have it written down somewhere?
Yeah,
Like
I have notes.
no
and
shit.
everything. Yeah.
Give
That's
us.
cool.
Well,
What's-
mean,
yeah,
shit,
yeah,
what
yeah,
yours
yeah,
is,
yeah, right. Let's give you credit. Here.
So mine is it all started from listening to this song, and then the song kind of cascaded.
my life.
It was actually "Numb" by Linkin. No, kidding.
Give my life to Jesus.
It's religious.
It's this like EDM song.
Oh, you've shared this with us before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might have talked about. I think we might have talked about this exact thing on the podcast before. But
I don't think I ever. You
definitely have not shared that.
haven't shared yours.
That's new.
You shared a little bit about yours before, because that sounded
I-
familiar.
The first time I ever talked about it with you was when we used to work together still, because that's right around the time I was doing.
That's right. That's
it.
right.
Yeah. Back like way back in those days.
Yeah.
like when I first met you.
Dang. So, but yeah, now it's out. But so what it was is that the main character it deals with angels and demons, like kind of like Kyle's. But main character, it takes place in I would say like ancient times, like medieval times. And the main character, he's an angel, and his father is like the king of angels, like Zeus or like God.
Yeah.
And he finally reaches the age where he can go and like all the angels that go on like demon hunts and they kill demons, and like he finally reaches the age where he can go, and he goes and he does it, but then he learns along the way that they have to they sacrifice like a human at the end or something like that to keep the seal for the demon gate like intact or whatever.
Yeah.
And he is against that, and so he rebels the angels like kick his butt. He goes, he gets banished. He didn't. It's a little girl is the one who he's trying to save. And he gets banished to Earth. This part I've kind of gone back and forth on. I'll either have him lose his memory, like as soon as he hits Earth, he doesn't remember that he's an angel, or he does remember. I don't know. That would make the movie longer if he doesn't remember.
Yeah.
But he ends up going to the demon gate and like making a deal because he also learns that the demons aren't totally evil. They're evil, but they aren't they shouldn't be subjugated to just all die. And so he makes a deal with them. He gets like demon powers, goes and he fights against all the angels, kills his dad, and then he's too late to save the little girl. Like he's there at the moment, and she gets turned into a demon, and the demon he like interrupts the process, so the demon ends up inside him.
Yeah, that sounds like an anime. Like a good one. That sounds like I could see that being perfect in that kind of environment.
Yeah, and then like I haven't fully finished thinking about how it ends, but it eventually goes to where like the demon. I even have his voice. He would sound like. Did you ever watch Howl's Moving Castle?
Yeah.
He'd sound like Calcifer,
Okay.
right? Or Bender
Yeah.
from Futurama.
Yeah.
Be a little crass, but so then the future there's a time jump. Demons have kind of not taken over, but they're in the world now, and so he's kind of reclused himself, and he's like taking out bad demons.
Yeah.
And he's living with this demon inside him that's kind of like they bond, right?
Yeah.
And to skip over what happens
Almost
eventually,
got like some kind of cyberpunk to it.
Yeah.
Like Johnny Silverhand.
Yes.
So, yeah.
and so stuff happens to where they find out that there might be a way to save the little girl, and the demon, he starts out, it's like cyberpunk kind of. He starts out being an ass, and then throughout the movie he almost becomes more human.
Yeah.
And then by the end, they realize that in order for the little girl to be saved, the demon would have to die, and the demon makes a sacrifice to do it. And then the final movie, oh boy, I was trying to think, but it ends up, I had a lot of it. It ends up with him going to like hell, and he's like, oh shoot, I'm forgetting. There was a lot of good stuff there too, but he goes there, and basically the demon that was in him didn't fully die.
Yeah.
And like right when he's about to die, the demon shows up and helps him out at the end.
Dude, I feel like this would be like the coolest like 3-part miniseries.
It'd be
Like,
dope.
I could see like almost like it. I could definitely see that being an anime.
It's
got a story built for that.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be super entertaining. I would watch that. That sounds like a lot
I
of
thought
fun.
about trying to write it down.
Your song?
Yeah, the 3-part movie or miniseries thing. It was
Because there's different parts in the song, right? Where it's like a rise and fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, so I wouldn't the song inspired me to make it, and that's how I can envision it. But the story itself would be a lot more traditional. Like it wouldn't have to follow the song. The song would be like the key points, I guess, and helped me generate the idea. Yeah. But it would be. I kind of want to write it. I think it'd be cool.
I think you should.
Yeah.
There's so many tools now to help you write and stuff. You know,
I know.
And you got your phones now where you can just log notes if you come up with any cool idea. You're never away from a pen and paper.
We could make it happen.
I even wrote a summary
Ooh.
for this.
Oh, this is of your
Yeah, my sci-fi story.
This is separate from your
This is nothing
Department
to do
of
with,
Collections.
Department of Collections. And so this is, I would have called it Elysian Fields. So basically, Elysian is like paradise, kind of, or whatever. But the idea is humanity, and it's a little bit of inspiration from Mass Effect, but on a different scale. So humanity discovers that Pluto itself is not actually a planet. It's more of a massive space station. that has just been kind of untouched for millions of years. And so when they finally get advanced enough, the story takes place in like 21, 22. I don't know when exactly, but a couple hundred years in the future. Finally get advanced enough to reach out that far and start colonizing. They find that this planet is like it's more of a massive space station. And then it's like a terraformer is what it was. It's the remnant of an ancient alien race that died off. And this planet has the ability to like, basically why Earth is the way it is because it terraformed Earth and then it died out. And then so they use this technology to kickstart themselves. They advance really rapidly, very quickly. But whenever one of these is activated, there's another species that has conquered this, that developed that, and they are like alerted to whenever these things go off, and then it just takes them a really long time because light speed travel is like it exists, but like not in like the way that it does in most sci-fi, where you can just get anywhere just like that. It's like very like rudimentary light speed travel. So like they have like a bunch of years where they're completely unfazed, but this whole time this alien race is like trying to get to Earth because they've been alerted that this thing had gone off.
So you're like they're actually moving at light speed.
Yeah, it's not
I
like
see.
Okay.
yeah. So it's this all takes place in kind of a pocket.
Yeah,
It's not like all of the Milky Way or anything like that. But anyways, embark on an interstellar odyssey in Elysian Fields, where humanity and the enigmatic Sadir, so that race, is a race. I'm explaining now the story, but
Yeah.
the Sadir is a race of people that they meet that they exist in like a mist form. And their whole like lore is they only used to be able to possess organic life. And then when their host died, they would either have to find a new host or just die. And they, through using like these thrall races, they're eventually able to advance enough to where now they don't have to possess like organic life. Now they inhabit like the bodies of machines and stuff
Damn.
like that. And they've built such a really good relationship with humans that they've designed the way they look to be humanoid. Because so like the idea is they kind of look very like a humanoid android, but the face is like an empty shell that the mist can like float in, and it fills the face, so they can like talk, and they have like this almost like ethereal look to them because
That's
the mist
sick.
is like inside their face or whatever.
Huh.
And that's how they designed. So they also have this like kind of dark past because the only way they got to where they were is they had to like basically enslave
Possess, yeah.
races and then so they're very ashamed of that part of their culture because they had no choice. That's just how
That's part of their evolution.
yeah, that's part of their evolution. So anyways, embark on an interstellar odyssey in Elysian Fields, where humanity and the enigmatic Sadir find themselves on the precipice of annihilation. The malevolent Jakar, which is this other evil race, conquerors of galaxies. I edited that later because I changed it, the storyline. Set their sights on the awe-inspiring space station Elysian Fields, a mechanical dwarf planet housing 900 million life forms. Unraveling the mysteries of this ancient construct discovered and reverse-engineered by humans becomes the key to their advancement and a beacon that drew the attention of the Sadir. The Jakar's relentless aggression intensifies. The fate of Elysian Fields hangs in the balance. Can the uneasy alliance between the humans and Sadir withstand the onslaught of the enemy who has conquered all in their path? Are
these Elysian Fields?
so
is that
Elysian
Pluto?
Fields is Pluto.
Okay.
At this point in time, they don't recognize it as a dwarf planet or anything anymore. It's a space station.
It's a
what
planet,
it is.
or a
It's
station, yeah.
They've identified it as oh shit.
They've identified it, and then after that, they've basically populated it, and
900
they
million.
live on it. And I changed some things. The Sadir originally it was like they had an uneasy relationship. Now I changed it to where like they had a strong relationship, so much so that they like changed their.
I like that because I feel like so many times it's like when you encounter in sci-fi, They encounter an alien race, and guess what? They're hostile.
Yeah.
You know, there's never
So
like
the
a greater
idea
threat.
is they've met the Sadir. The Sadir were from like Proxima B, which is like the closest like exoplanet or whatever that we have. I looked it up, whatever that the closest exoplanet was. And when they learned that humans were making these moves, they set their sights on Pluto. And then over the course of like a couple hundred years, they developed this really strong, cohesive relationship with them. And then that's when this third, just like tyrannical, alien race comes in and gets involved because they get alerted every time one of these planets goes off. But they faster than light travel hasn't been invented yet.
Just light travel.
Just light travel. So it's just taken them that long wherever they were. It's just taken that long to get to Pluto.
So did they? Is it the same race that created Pluto?
It's not the same
no,
race.
but they know when they get activated. 'cause
They
they've
know
been
when they get activated.
dominating.
These are like very prevalent in this pocket of the Milky Way. These devices, but
Are they the creator of this Pluto, like the ones that have charged back?
they are not the creator, but they have been around long enough to where, and that would kind of get revealed as the stories go on. But they have been around long enough to know who the creators were at one point.
Got it.
But when this was going on, this was happening. This was like before, like dinosaurs were even on Earth.
Shit. Okay.
And then
So this race has been around.
this race has
a
been
long time.
around a long time. And that was, I kind of ran into a few snags there. I'm trying to figure out like what's the reason that they are the way they are. I'm trying to find like a good, like,
Well,
I want
also,
it to
why
make
did they
sense,
all abandon that?
yeah,
right?
I'm trying to figure that out, but because the idea was this was left here in this solar system because it's what terraformed Earth to be able to inhabit life.
And then they died off
and
for
then
whatever reason.
for whatever
Yeah.
reason they died off, and that's like the great mystery. So obviously there's still some things I'm working out, but that's like the kind of the basic concept of it.
I could see some cool shit with like the main character, and he has what were they called? The other race, the good
Sadir?
ones,
The
Sadir.
yeah.
And like the main character, and he has like a Sadir friend, and like
Yeah.
when they get in trouble, they can like combine.
Well, I kind of
shit.
thought of like having the two main characters, one human and one Sadir. And I thought like if they were like fighter pilots or something, like the Sadir can put like it when it sits into its chair, it like literally locks into the chair, and then it controls
The whole ship?
Yeah, it literally like it controls
Becomes
the
the
whole ship,
ship.
becomes
Okay.
the ship. And then so like you have one person, the Sadir is the pilot, and then you're like the human is like the the gunner or whatever. Figure out something, for them to both do. But like the idea would be it'd be like a partner thing. There'd
That'd be
be two
dope.
main characters.
And then what would happen if when they possess somebody? Because I'm guessing they still have the ability to.
So it's extremely like it's like
Taboo.
punishable. It's like taboo. It's punishable. It's a
because
punishable
they
crime.
fostered such a relationship with humans. right?
Yeah. But the idea is, I even thought about, I was like, this is like going to get nuts. But I was like, what if there was like a scene where like he had no choice but
See,
to
that's what I was
infiltrate
thinking.
into the planet?
Into the planet,
like into,
Ego.
like, yeah, like
into Pluto.
and then like into like Pluto or like,
And because it's a off-site spaceship.
yeah,
effectively,
and
they
like
do some of it.
that's obviously too much to like it killed it because it's too much to try and control, but like it needed to figure out in the core there's like some secret that was left behind or whatever, and so I need to figure out a way to like who are the makers or whatever, or like even possessing like
The main
I
character.
can see like situations where it'd have to possess like an actual like organic being of some kind or something like. So like I was playing around with that too, but I thought that was like a really cool concept for an alien.
Yeah,
is,
that's cool.
like-
It's like it kind of reminds me like just visually because it's the only thing we've seen like Hellboy. the
yeah,
scientist
kind of
guy.
like that. Yeah,
That's made. He's just the gaseous form, and he like opens his finger and he goes.
into the suit.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. I kind of envisioned them a little bit more like,
Ethereal.
yeah, ethereal, a little bit more majestic looking.
Because like you would actually probably see their face.
And the
in
idea,
suit.
yeah. So like when they first make contact with humans, they're supposed to be like, they don't look like humanoids at all. And then as their relationship developed and fostered over like a couple hundred years with humans, they started developing they all started looking like humans because of the relationship that they've built up with the humans.
Damn.
And
That's pretty sick.
yeah. There's a lot of cool things you could do with like a mist sentient being that could
Yeah.
like infiltrate and like
Especially with them taking over.
I originally thought
The
I was
ship?
like, is it like what if it was like a some kind of like parasite that evolved to you know what I mean? So like that evolved
Yeah.
to that level. And that was my first thought.
That's kind of when you're explaining it. This is kind of what I'm envisioning,
That'd be
Yeah.
pretty sick.
like some ethereal.
Yeah. I definitely like I think it would be definitely a lot more humanoid looking, but like I could see that in the face.
Yeah,
Like cuz the face is basically like glass.
Yeah.
It looks like glass or whatever, and then when they go into their bodies or whatever, it
becomes whatever.
Yeah. And so like I could see like, you know, they could make that look however they want it to, and I imagine that they would like to stand out in different ways so they'd like would all look kind of a little different, that kind of thing.
well, with almost like that power where you're talking about, it could, this specific character could inhabit the planet.
Yeah.
You'd almost have to give them some sort of Jedi-like powers where there's
There would
different
have to be
scale of like
something
I've got extra midi-chlorians or whatever the
Like,
hell they
'cause-
say with the Jedi.
There would have to be something that made whoever this character was unique.
Profound, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
different in some way. And that was what I was thinking too. It was like I don't want like one character to just be super OP. So that might, you know, be reworked or whatever. It might just be something as simple as like, you know, he's the first one to willingly give his body to one of these
To a planet.
yeah,
Yeah.
just like I don't know. So like obviously very very conceptual
Yeah,
ground
you could pretty cool though.
phase,
Yeah.
but like that I
It painted
wrote
a
it
picture
down
for me.
at
I
one
can
point.
visualize it. I definitely can.
I was thinking
visualize
like space opera, you know,
it.
like
There's so many different storylines that you could create with that. Of like where almost, I can see a lot of the inspiration for this echoing towards Mass Effect a little bit with
Yeah.
like the Citadel and placing it, you know, and
Yeah.
where's that from? But you can almost have similar storylines of like, where did this come from? So we've evolved to the point where we can get to Pluto and we realize that it's actually a station. And then we kind of explore and become familiar with the station. And this is actually one of the things that I love so much about the TV show. I believe it's called The Foundation. It's been a while since I've watched it, but with Lee
you brought it
Pace.
up on the
Yeah.
podcast once. Yeah.
It's such a cool concept because they're not constrained by time, because he is this sort of immortal being, because he just reanimates himself. He's created all these clones, and he's copyrighted that technology to where only the Emperor can have that technology. So he can have he can plant the seeds politically or these other things that are going on, and then 1,000 years can go by, and all of a sudden it's generations pass, and you see the implications of that policy and stuff like that. So you can almost see,
Yeah.
I love that ability, because now you're talking about where you're constrained of, you know, light speed travel and all. Like there's so many different avenues you could take this story. It's pretty interesting.
I thought of that because I was like, you know, because at first I was like, when the station gets activated or whatever, it sends a beacon, and I was like, I needed to figure out a story reason as to why they wouldn't just show up like that,
Yeah.
you know? And so I was like, well, I mean, if I try and stick in the grounds of reality as much as I can, maybe there is no way to go faster than light.
Well, like that's
you know?
the cool thing.
So like maybe that's why it takes so long for them to get to Earth or whatever.
Like Mass Effect, FTL travel doesn't exist. They have to use the mass relay,
Yeah.
and so that's how they can limit. Like, oh, you know, the Reapers are taking forever because there's no mass relays to Earth.
Yeah, they go the old fashioned way.
Yeah.
Flying from dark space.
Except when you got the map up on Mass Effect 3, that fucking Reaper, he's hunting your ass down when you're trying to fast travel.
But like yeah, so
Zooming.
obviously like if not that I probably will never turn this into a real story, but like I would have to work some of the lore, make it make sense, and kind of do that. But that was like kind of
It's fun to do.
yeah.
Which one do you think you would want to go back to
The one I actually put work into was the collections department.
collections department?
Yeah, but like I don't even know if I deleted that somewhere.
Oh,
I don't even know where I kept that. It's probably been like 6 years, 7 since I've touched that.
be curious to ask you in a year if you've thought about, I guess asking that question again of which would you go back to, this news story or the collections department?
I like the potential of this news story that I thought of,
Yeah.
sci-fi wise. Like I think that there's a chance to have like a nice rich sci-fi story, and I've always liked sci-fi. But the other
Two
one,
very different stories, right? You've got like the
Yeah.
serious nature of this one versus the comedy relief, fun,
Yeah.
silly death play.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
more, the first story, the collections department one, is much more fantasy than it is sci-fi. Right?
yeah, like this one, I could
Yeah.
figure out
This
a way
is
to keep
sci-fi.
it like almost like a hard sci-fi
Yeah.
rather than fantasy. There's something a little fantasy-esque about the Sadir as aliens, but I feel like you could figure out a way to make that still grounded in reality. Like if I knew,
You can, like you said, you could make him a parasite, an evolution of
yeah,
a
it was almost,
parasite
I was
or-
almost like if a parasite evolved, some kind of, which
And then
how would that ever happen? I don't know, but like you can figure out some way to story reason. to-
Origin story, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we came from single cell organisms.
Yeah.
Depending on how far you want to go back.
you
Story.
could say that they've been attempting to make contact with humanity, and that's the ghost stories and like the possessions and stuff. It's like,
you could honestly.
yeah, like it was
They
just
inhabited
a
an asteroid that then crashed onto Earth, and then they
Killed the dinosaurs.
yeah killed the dinosaurs.
We're
and
too
then-
early.
And yeah, they've been possessing people, and I don't know why when they possess people, they talk about like demons and speak in tongue and vomit everywhere, but it's a bad reaction to humans
We just didn't figure out the proper method.
to communicate. We thought,
we needed more potassium. Who would have thought?
yeah,
Well, we are way over our scheduled time.
Yeah, we are.
This was fun.
that was.
We went down memory lane and somehow didn't talk about our title.
We talked about
Economy reset.
not that.
I have a whole thing that I want to lay out, and I'm not going to bore you guys.
Too
tonight,
late
but
now.
Yeah, I
Hour
have a
and
whole
40 minutes into
thing
it.
that I have a whole thought process on this. So, Dylan, where can people find us?
They can find us on YouTube right here,
Right now.
right now, live
here,
every Tuesday,
now.
7 p.m. Pacific, where we stream for an hour, 2 hours, maybe. Who knows?
Depends on
Just
how
however
active the
long
chat
we're
is.
having fun, yeah.
Having a good time.
Come join us, come chat, come check us out. Also check out our shorts, which our wonderful Kyle is the brains behind, and he's doing a great job.
That's me.
But yeah, come find us next Tuesday, 7 p.m., and we'll have another fun time about economic reset.
Wow, amazing! And remember, the good KD, you get the dub.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.